Here, where the sun's rays first reach the ancient land of Bharat, lies Arunachal Pradesh, the eastern mooring post of the great Himalaya range. Imagine yourself flying high at an altitude of almost 50,000 meters, 5 times the height of Mount Everest, above Lakhimpur in the Brahmaputra Valley. And looking north, this is what you will see. On the far right, almost touching the horizon, is the immense, solitary mountain, Namche Barwa, 7,756 meters high. Geographically speaking, Namche Barwa is the starting point of the 2,500-kilometer Great Himalaya Range. Here, at one of the range's highest points, the Brahmaputra has chosen to enter India. The gorge of the Yarlung Sampo, as the Brahmaputra is known in Tibet, is one of the wildest and least explored spots on Earth. The main chain sweeps off the southwest in a splendor of dazzling peaks, Sari, Gorichan, Kangto, and on to the easternmost peaks of the Bhutan Himalaya. Here in the West Kameng district, the Great Himalaya enters Arunachal from Bhutan in a maze of valleys and ridges, varying in altitude from a mere 800 meters to 7,000 meters. The first great mountain on the range in Arunachal is the Kangto Massif. Here in its snowfields and glaciers, its knife-edged ridges that trap the monsoon clouds gather the waters which combine to form the Kameng. The Kameng, along with its tributaries, is the principal architect of the landscape of western Arunachal and one of the major tributaries of the Brahmaputra. Further to the east, the Subansiri and the Dihang, as the Brahmaputra is known here, gouge their way down the great Himalayan watershed. The catchment of these rivers are clothed with extremely dense rainforests, for the large part unexplored. These forests are the reason for Arunachal's incredible biodiversity, home as they are to countless species of flora and fauna. Like the South American rainforests, the permanent bloom of these huge forests is a potential, unrivaled source of hitherto undiscovered alkaloids and drugs, cures for diseases yet to hit humanity, as well as the plethora we already have around. Like an artist gone crazy on green, Arunachal Pradesh is a riot of green of the tropical rainforest, a result of the heavy precipitation that this area receives. The lush forest is reminiscent of an Amazonian jungle, except that here it's transposed on a mountain slope. The rivers Dihang and Kameng have carved out for themselves incredible gorges in Arunachal Pradesh. This, coupled with thick forest on either side of the gorge, has made things extremely difficult for man. However, the coming of the suspension bridge, a Chinese invention, has made this formidable terrain accessible. Arunachal is the land of the dawn in more ways than one. Mankind has apparently prospered here since about 2000 BC, going by the number of tribes that reside within its borders. For the high Himalayan areas, access from the north, the Tibetan or the Bhutanese side has always been easier, whereas the dense rainforests served as an effective barrier to further southward movement. Thus in Arunachal, as all over the Himalayas, the upper hills are primarily Buddhist, though the people retain many influences of their original animist faiths. The rainforests of Arunachal are an incredible treasure trove of gene wealth. Hundreds of medicinal plants, probably as many more with as yet undiscovered properties, over 500 species of exotic orchids, some not found anywhere else in the world.
Arunachal has a very unique importance in terms of its biodiversity resources, and it's included amongst the 15 global hotspots of biological diversity. Hotspots have their own criteria, but for a general understanding, it's to do with the species richness.
Over 52 species of rhododendron, while insect species are nowhere near fully catalogued. A biodiversity, however, threatened by the loss of its habitat. The state's astonishing near 61% forest cover. Rapacious timber interests have already spread their net to Arunachal, as we see in today's Eco Watch. Contributing a lot to the unexplored state of Arunachal's forests are its leeches, which besides being longer than those found anywhere in the Himalayas, range up to an incredible 12,000 feet above the sea level. This is the famous tiger leech of Tawang, so called because of its coloration. Armed with extremely perceptive receptors, the leech is alive to the slightest vibration towards which it homes in. These tropical leeches belonging to the order Himedipsa drop onto travelers from trees or bushes or climb their legs, find a pulsating vein close to the surface and fasten on. Their saliva contains hirudin, an important anticoagulant widely used in medicine. Capable of ingesting 3 times their own body weight in blood, the leech then drops off and seeks a cool nook, for it takes a couple of months to digest its feast. Leeches were used in traditional medicine for bloodletting and have been recently used in very delicate brain surgery in the West in order to relieve congestion from a particular area without any side effects. Arunachal is the home of 22 major tribes who even today, mainly due to Arunachal's restricted status, fiercely stick to their traditional lifestyles. In fact, most of these tribes gave the British a hard time when the northeast frontier was being amalgamated with the rest of British India. Because they stuck so zealously to their independence, they with highly developed cultures were dubbed Daflas or wild men. Their extremely effective jungle warfare tactics and the Amazonian rainforests made this place the frontier of exploration throughout the last century. In the upper reaches of the Kameng Valley, there are still some undiscovered secrets in the land of the Mompas. Mompas are Buddhists and have been so for the past 500 years. Another distinction that the Mompas have is that they are the only tribe in Arunachal Pradesh with a written script and therefore a recorded history. Here, in a small village monastery, young women with shaven heads are training to become Buddhist nuns. All over the Himalayas, monasteries serve as important nuclei for keeping local cultures alive, and here too, in Arunachal, the young initiates are trained in music and dance and mural painting, apart from the more esoteric aspects of their religion. Mompa architecture used to make the English homesick, redolent as it is of the construction of rural English cottages with basic use of stone and large wooden beams. Life amongst the highland Mompas continues pretty much the same way as it has been for centuries. A limited amount of farming, some hunting, and the domestic manufacture of most daily use items, such as this yak hair blanket being woven by this woman. In the Mompa economy, as in other high Himalayan areas, the yak plays a central role. In fact, it was only with the domestication of the yak that the inhabitants of the Himalayas were able to conquer the high mountains. The yak can be ridden or made to carry a heavy load and is incredibly sure-footed. Yak milk, though low in quantity, only about a liter a day, is very rich, producing excellent butter and cheese because of its high fat content. In addition, this useful animal, which makes few demands by way of food, provides wool for making everything from ropes to blankets and caps. Its wool has a unique water-repellent quality, and ingenious local designing has produced this cap with its peculiar tails, meant for draining the runoff. Its droppings provide the only combustible material above the tree line. And last, but not the least, for the Mompas, it provides their only source of meat. Interestingly, the Mompa disdain mutton or pork, even though yak meat is nearly 3 times as expensive. Here in the village Gompa, as the initiates finish their morning prayers, a feast for all participants is being prepared. Truly, it is the Mompas who are a mountain tribe. Tribes of Indian, Tibetan, Burmese origin, their beliefs still retain elements of animism and shamanism, though the influence of Buddhism is particularly marked in the Mompas. For the Mompas, the spiritual center of the universe is the historic Gompa at Tawang. I'm sitting here with all these monks in the courtyard of the Tawang Galden Namya Latse Monastery, which translated means the divine site chosen by the celestial white horse. As the story goes, in the dream of Mira Lama came this white horse who pawed this very pristine site and thereby led Mira Lama to start construction on the site. The construction started in 1640 and went on for the next 40 years till 1680. And from that time on, this monastery flourished as a major Buddhist center. However, unfortunately, during the 1962 Chinese invasion, this monastery was badly damaged by the Chinese. At the moment, there is a lot of reconstruction activity going on in a lot of buildings which comprise this fortress-like monastery, very typical of this area. Another very important historical significance of the site is that His Holiness the Dalai Lama crossed this way and stayed here for a night in 1959 when he was fleeing from the invading hordes. Framed by 1,000-year-old tusks, the altar conceals the image of the goddess Kali. Its tantric emanations are so strong that the idol is viewed only by the chosen on select occasions. Elsewhere in this dark chapel, priceless art treasures crowd one another. Tara Devi, Tsongkhapa, Guru Padmasambhav, the first 11 Dalai Lamas all stand shrouded in gloom, awaiting their return to the hallowed halls of the renovated monastery. Unlike many monasteries in Ladakh and Zanskar, Tawang is vibrantly alive in this modern age. Here in Tawang's renowned library, Buddhist scholars have access to thousands of block-printed commentaries and treatises on Mahayana Buddhism, as well as original manuscripts. Interestingly, the paper used is also produced by the Mompas locally from the bark of the Hong Seng tree. In another corner of the vast monastery, a very contemporary scene is in progress amidst very exotic surroundings. Young lamas are giving an examination. This is no internal monastery exam, however. These students are sitting for the state secondary school examinations. Their model behavior ought to serve as an inspiration to students in other parts of the country, especially where exam centers are more like war zones. Here, the examiners also seem equally involved in the proceedings. In one corner, nutritious butter tea is being prepared for the examinees. This student seems a bit distracted by the aroma of the tea. Or perhaps he's searching for inspiration. In yet another courtyard, the dancers of death are going through their steps. Their leaping, crisscrossing advance symbolizes Dorje or thunderbolt, cleansing evil from their path. The masks with 5 skulls arrayed on the crown remind the pious observer of the transience of all life and exhort him to perform good deeds in this lifetime. Likewise, the red and blue colors serve the same admonishing function in the dances. The eerie-sounding whistles are built into the masks, providing a spine-chilling counterpoint. The dancers follow the strict code given in the book written upon handmade paper, produced in the Gompa itself. Before the dance, the rules are read out. These rules indicate the movements, gestures, tempo, as well as the usage of costumes and props. Not everybody is busy doing something though. Some are just soaking in the sun and the ambience, or meditating under the beneficent aura of the monastery. The most striking feature of the Arunachal ecosystem is that at altitudes varying from 500 meters to 7,000 meters, from the floor of the Brahmaputra Valley to the crest of the great eastern Himalaya, fauna and flora ranging from the tropical to the alpine is found within a distance of 200 kilometers as the crow flies. As in other parts of the eastern Himalaya, the tropics meet up with the Himalayan temperate zone with surprising suddenness. The tree line gives way to the shimmering Himalayan glaciers, which form a dramatic climactic border, separating the dry regions of the north from areas where dense evergreen forests flourish at 3,000 meters. However, these great forests are under increasing threat from rapacious timber interests. A large number of wood-based industries like plywood and veneer mills have mushroomed in the state in the last 4 years or so. Probably the maximum number yet came up last year. A large number of these have come up in remote areas, rendering monitoring and control by the Forest Department very difficult. Also, the total capacity of these industries appears to be much in excess of the projected turnover, leaving room for suspicions that all may not be above board. Increasing local populations, migration from the plains, roadside labor, etc. are all doing their might to contribute to deforestation. Traditionally, tribal populations in these areas have farmed using the technique known as slash and burn cultivation. This involves firing a stretch of forest and clearing it for farming operations. The strip is then intensely cultivated till returns become marginal, and then another strip is cleared. Forest cover used to regenerate fairly fast, but nowadays, with increasing population pressures, the forest doesn't seem to stand much of a chance.
Deforestation has to be put up in proper context, because one way to see it is that one who has the resources can only exploit it. Those major states in the country who have already done away with their forests can no more be deforested, because there is practically very little left there. So therefore we cannot say that Arunachal is getting entirely devastated. What we can say is that the rate of removal of forest cover is much higher and increasingly going up in Arunachal Pradesh over the years. As the excess is coming up, more roads are coming in, means of transportation are coming in, market resources are coming in absence of other major areas where the forest cover was in the northeast. Now more and more industrial pressure is on Arunachal Pradesh, because that's where the resources are.
Like the enchanted forest of the fairy tales, Arunachal forests are full of medicinal herbs with magical properties.
The yew leaves have yielded a substance which is called taxine, and from that taxine and alkaloid which is called Taxol is extracted, and that alkaloid helps in ovarian cancer. Now, without realizing that if we harvest leaves in a sustainable manner, people have gone in and out right to defoliate the trees as much as possible, and that has led to extensive damage. So much so that we had practically spent half a day around Tawang and couldn't locate a good patch of trees where we could see the trees.
In Arunachal Pradesh, the situation is extremely critical, and over the past few years, hundreds and thousands of tons of Texas baccata have been extracted. In 1993, the state cabinet had banned the extraction of Texas baccata. However, in spite of the ban, the extraction continues unabated. The disappearance of the forests involves the extinction of many plant and animal species, including the tree-clinging orchids. Here at the Orchid Research Center at Tipi, the world-renowned Dr. Rao and his colleagues have done pioneering work towards preserving the state's gene pool wealth as actualized in its nearly 500 orchid species. Dr. Rao has now some heavy-duty partners in his work in the form of World Wildlife Fund and the Indian Army.
Indian Army has a lot of presence, and especially in North Sikkim, because we also have an office in Sikkim under this Eastern Himalaya program where we are working. And we have an exclusive program with Indian Army. It's called WWF India Army Biodiversity Support Program. And that program is basically meant for crisis management, for rehabilitation of endangered species. Because even if you have a protected area, sometimes it's not protected practically, because it's only on paper that there is such a big legal framework. Whereas army cantonments and establishments are still well protected. There is no infringement in them. So what we are trying, and they are spread out on all the biogeographic zones of the country. So what the concept is that if there is any species or a set of species that are mainly flora, that's really getting pressurized in its natural habitat, try and rehabilitate it in the army cantonment, so that at least the genetic resources are there.